And today we have a guest speaker. It's Steve Startz, and he's the local owner and operator of Green Wind and Solar Energy. And Steve's going to describe a couple ways that we can look at the solar power and what our options are, and what are some of the benefits. And so at the end, he's going to present for a while. Then we'll have a discussion, questions and answers. There's no breakout rooms today like we've had in some of our previous Roundtable virtual events. And so today it'll be a straight presentation with Steve, and then we'll open it up for discussion. And Dee is going to moderate this. So again, welcome, and make a note of some of your questions and save those till Steve's at the end of this presentation, and then we'll have a good discussion today. All right, Dee, why don't you go ahead and take it over.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit for why we, and when I turned that computer around, I spilled some water here. Why we decided to give us 10 seconds here. Sorry about that. All right.
The committee on that we have that looks at this, we discussed a variety of things, and over the time we found that there was a lot of interest at our church for solar wind power and solar panels on our individual roofs, and we've even asked whether this might be a good direction for St. Stephen's to look at as an organization. So we decided to pursue this and find a speaker, and we think that Steve would be a great person to tell us a little bit about solar power in Oklahoma, how it interacts with the utilities and the state and consumers as well. So that's a little bit about filler for Dee.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you ready to go?
I am. If somebody could allow me to share my screen, I'm trying to pull up a couple PowerPoint slides.
I have you as a co-host.
You should be able to.
Why don't you try it?
I'm getting it says co-host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. All right. It says co-host.
Now try it.
Okay. There we go. All right. Thank you. Well, one of the things that I did just a little checking about solar energy and what's happening with it globally as well as in the US. Here's a diagram that shows what's been happening with solar energy globally. And you can see how it has just really taken off since about 2010, about a decade plus ago. Now this is worldwide. On the next screen, there's a little bit here about where the US is getting its electricity, how much of it's from renewables, the green band on that, and natural gas is up. And you notice that, that both nuclear and coal are going down and projected to go down even further. But the one band that's expanding the most there is that green one, which is renewables. Now within renewables, then you've got solar power, wind, geothermal, hydroelectric, and so forth. And again, the dotted line shows you, this is 2018, but what the projection is for the most growth to occur within solar power within renewables. So it has been growing. It's projected to grow a lot more in the future. It's something we really need to be looking at and learning about. This is also a diagram about solar installations in the US. And again, they've taken off quite a bit, especially in the last 5 years or so. And that just shows proportions, residential, commercial, and utility. Looks like utilities are expanding a lot in this, and the residential is growing rather steadily. So I'll leave that with that, and I'll bring it back this to, now let's come out of it. Do you want to make some comments before you start? How do you want to do this?
You guys, I'm ready for you guys.
Go ahead.
Well, folks, I'm Steve Startz. We're Green Wind and Solar. I retired basically 6 years ago. I was first in disasters for corporate America, but prior to that, our company's being fairly successful. My wife came to me 14 years ago and said, we're going to give something back to the earth. And so I really work for her. She's a tree hugger. And we're not a nonprofit, but we are really about promoting solar energy in the U.S. That's really about all there is to tell about us. We brought in engineers 14 years ago. I brought in a structural engineer I went to college with here at OU. And I brought in an electrical engineer, Alan Spencer, who had started his career at Sandia Labs and had just retired from NASA. I put them in a building, and we, for 2 years, did research and development back in the beginning of our company and really found out what worked, when, where, why, and how. Something that really strikes people that they don't really imagine in the beginning is the scale at which, or the size of a solar installation. A solar panel is about the size of an entry door of a business. And it takes many of them to really produce a great deal of power. So we'll discuss that, size and costs as we go through this. There's really 3 types of systems with solar energy. There are off-grid systems, which are systems that provide you power when you lose power with the utility. There are on-grid systems, which you probably heard the term net metering, and that's where you're directly connected to the utility. And you're offsetting your power. The issue with that, and most people don't understand with the on-grid system, is when the utility goes down, your solar panels don't work. By law, if the utility stops producing power, the units on your home or business have 300 milliseconds to stop producing power so that they don't feed back into the lines and electrocute the high line workers that are working on your electricity. So people do the on-grid system, and they do that to offset their utility bill. The third type of system is a kind of a hybrid, and it's the newest of the technologies. It combines both on-grid and off-grid systems, so that when the utility goes down, it automatically disconnects from the utility in case, so they can't feed back up into the lines, and automatically turns your battery powered inverter system that's on so that you still have power. Those are basically the 3 types of systems. The changes in these systems over the past 10 to 20 years has been really very little. You hear about high efficiency solar panels and normal efficiency solar panels. You hear about new lithium ion batteries and all of these new innovations are very, very costly. I'll give you an example. A high efficiency solar panel can cost twice as much as just a regular solar panel. It will produce an extra 15 to 20% of power. So something you should consider is, well, does that really mathematically make sense for me to pay twice as much for a panel that's only going to make 20 or 30% more power? Logically, anybody would say, well, I'll put 2 normal panels in, get double the power for the same price virtually as getting these high-end units. It's important to put common sense into your installations. I have all my customers, I ask them, well, first off, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to simply do something that's good for the earth? And if that's the case, net metering is really a good way to go. It's the least expensive way to do it. That is where you're grid tied and you aren't making power when the utility isn't making power. It's the most cost efficient way. The good thing about that is the state of Oklahoma, if you make extra power from your solar panels, they're only going to pay you 3 cents per kilowatt hour you produce. Well, in today's times, you're paying anywhere between 7 and 12 cents a kilowatt hour to produce your own power. So you're losing money in just giving that to the utility. Okay, I'll phase into that then. Okay. Sure, let's go into the off-grid grid diagram. And I'll break these down as we go. Okay, we'll just start out with the off-grid systems. Yes, let's do that. That's where I really was going. Okay, as you can see here by this diagram, you're basically becoming a utility provider when you get an on-grid system or a net metering system. The utility is a provider, and then your home solar array is a provider. As you can see there on the left of your screen, those two. Now, the good thing about on-grid systems is they are inexpensive. They're the least expensive, and you use the power you produce before you use the utility's power. In other words, the power is coming directly into your service panel on your home side of the meter. As you can see from this drawing, it's your solar array produces power. It's a DC current converted into AC current, goes into your panel, into your home uses it. And then if there's any extra, these new meters, they register what extra you produce. And until you are using more power than what you're producing, the utility company won't be putting any power and you won't be charged for any electricity during that period. The good part about it is, y'all are probably familiar now with peak power usage during the summer. Sometimes it starts at 11 in the morning, sometimes it's 1 in the afternoon until 5 or 7 in the evenings, usually from May to September. And my office, for instance, here in Norman, at times I'm being charged 45 cents a kilowatt hour for usage during that period. Well, the good thing about net metering is you're getting that 45 cents because you're not paying 45 cents from the utility. So if the utility's charging 45 cents a kilowatt hour, you're making 45 cents an hour. If the utility is charging 6 to 10 cents a kilowatt hour, you're making 6 to 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's the only real fair scenario the utilities have given you. I always recommend that our customers put in a smaller system that they believe they're going to need, because you don't want to be making extra power and only getting paid 3 cents for it. And that's all they're going to pay you. The good things about this is there's no batteries to buy. There's no charge controllers for your battery charging. The downside is you still are in that box to where when the utilities go out, you still don't have any power. It's really good for the earth. It sets in and kind of stops the utility from gouging you for excess peak hour charges, because you're getting the same amount as they're charging. One of the reasons a person would want to buy an on-grid system is to buy you're actually buying your utility power ahead of time, and you're basically locking in the price. As you know, utilities have gone up over and over and over again. And they're going to continue to rise. So this is a good, inexpensive, that's not inexpensive, the least expensive way for you to do something good for the earth and to kind of stabilize your electric bill. Now, they're still going to charge you about $35 a month to be hooked up. And so you're always going to be stuck, basically, unless you're rich and can put in an extra 5,000 watts of system just at 3 cents a kilowatt hours. All you're going to get a payback on that. It'd take forever. So you're always going to be kind of stuck with a charge when you're hooked up with OG&E or one of the other electric co-ops here in the state. I can kind of move on from this to the off-grid system now and give you now this is for the people that are considering, well, you know, we have storms and I don't want to lose my television, my refrigerator contents, my freezer contents. I want some of my house to still work when the utilities go out. You want to hear the news. You want your lights to be on. An off-grid system, we can put them in large enough to run your whole house, but the expense on an off-grid system is 2 times as much as an on-grid system, solely because the size of battery packs it takes to actually run your home for any period of time. If you look at this diagram here, you've got a solar array down there in the bottom left-hand corner. It has a charge controller that regulates how much power goes into your battery packs and gets them charged. Well, then that battery pack then provides DC power going into a DC AC inverter, which turns it into AC power. And that AC power goes into your service panel, just like OG&E. You're a second service provider, your own in that instance. Now, that works very well at either in small levels or large. We recommend to our customers to put a very small off-grid system in conjunction with an on-grid system because of the cost. Because typically you're only going to need this off-grid system a week or 2 weeks a year when you lose power or while they're working on the utilities. And during that period, you don't want to lose the contents of your refrigerator. A small off-grid system that will run basically a small cabin. It'll run your water well. It won't run your heat and air. It won't run your electric clothes dryer. It would run your washing machine. It runs your TV, your ceiling fans, your lights, your stereo equipment. But an off-grid system, a good one. And you have to remember here, when you're becoming a utility, this is supposed to last 40 years or more. So don't buy Harbor Freight solar panels. You buy your OG&E buys quality equipment because what they're putting in has to last. Well, what you're putting into your home has to last. So you can get a budget system, but that's what you're getting. You want to use copper wire, not aluminum. You can get into these systems for an on-grid system for really now as low as $2.50 a watt, which is 10 times less than what it was 10 years ago. These government subsidies with solar installations now are helpful, but now they're not necessary for a payoff in 7 to 12 years. Now, also, usually when you're having a power outage, it's bad weather. Well, solar systems don't really work without the sun. Well, we always advise a customer to add a small to large generator as well. Neat thing about a small generator, say a 5,000 watt Honda generator, typically they're run on propane or natural gas, but propane for most of our clients. You could, let's say you lost power and you hadn't had sun for 2 days and your battery pack's going down, you could simply turn that generator on for an hour and a half. It would recharge your batteries. You could turn the generator back off and you're still going. Those more affluent clients that we have, many of them will opt to put in maybe a 15 kW generator into this system, so that they're not only just powering their lights and their refrigerator and their water well, but their heat and air system still works during these off periods. It's really dependent upon your budget and your goal. Now, the third system is a hybrid system. This hybrid system is really a combination of both the on-grid and off-grid combined. It's new technology. We've been waiting years for it to come out. I have not been able to get my hands on one to install one. It's all new. But it's like anything else. The more buttons and knobs you've got, the more likely you're going to have a problem with a system. I'm not saying this isn't a good thing to have, but we've found over the last 10 to 14 years that our simpler systems that we've installed have been basically bulletproof. Once we start adding in automatic generator starters or automatic switches to turn these systems on and off, we find that the generators will come on and burn your propane up when you really don't need them to come on. If you're going to get into an off-grid, on-grid system, we recommend you keep it simple to where you turn them on or you turn them off. Now, they will operate pretty seamlessly on their own, until the batteries start running down or you have lack of sun. But here's this hybrid system. You still got your commercial electrical provider. You've got your system, a solar array. You've got a battery pack, and you've got a generator. Now with those systems, you have 4 sources of power and you're independent, just like you are with an off-grid system. And if you put a large enough system in, your house will seamlessly operate automatically. When the electric company goes off, the lights will blink and the solar array, battery pack, and off-grid inverter will take over. It's built in. It has an on-grid and an off-grid inverter. It's ideal, but you're talking many thousands of dollars. And I'm not saying that you folks can't afford it. I'm sure many of you can. But we like to see our customers learn and grow into their systems. There are 2 styles of inverters out now. Most of the stuff you've seen and heard about are called string inverters. And that's where you string your panels together in strings of 10 to 12 panels, converted into 600 or 1,000 volts DC, and then convert that into 220 volts or 110 volt AC. Those are basically an off-grid system device, but you can do it on-grid as well. The problem with those is if you lose one panel, all of those panels go out. There was a new technology, Siemens now bought them out, but it's called in-phase inverters. We've had a great deal of success with them. We did research studies with Oklahoma State University. With these type inverters, we did their new lead building at the OKC campus across from the fairgrounds. We put our flowers in up there and competed with their wind generator. We proved that in that process, doing that new lead building, that solar panels produce relatively per size of unit 3 times the power of most wind generators out on the market that you can buy for your home or small business. We also did use those micro inverters. We did, I don't know when anybody's familiar with Tucker Tower at Lake Ardmore for the state. They built a brand new lead museum out on the lake below Tucker Tower. We were privileged enough to do the power for that building as well for the state. And that is using the new micro inverters. And these inverters are not string inverters. These inverters, each inverter goes directly on the back of a solar panel and comes directly 220 volts AC from each solar panel. A real advantage of that is if one of them quits, they all don't quit. Say you have a rodent chew a wire in half. Well, not all 12 of those panels will stop working. The number one question I get on solar panels is hail damage. They're designed to take a 1-inch hailstone direct hit. The good thing about here in the state of Oklahoma, our storms come typically from west to east, and a solar panel is facing at longitude angle, which is about 36 degrees here in Oklahoma, and is usually facing 15 degrees west of due south. We've had softball size hail with glancing blows on our panels out in the field now for 14 years and have yet to lose a panel to hail. Now, we have fixed and worked on business installations that we did not do on flat roofs. When you start putting panels on flat roofs, then you are going to get direct hits by hail, because then you're at a maximum of probably about a 15-degree angle of attack. And basically that hail just hits it and it will break them. We've seen breakage by hail there. This hybrid system we're talking about, though, I kind of ventured off there. It's new technology. The one thing, it's very convenient for those that can afford it, because you just don't know you lost power. The problem with it is you're spending a great deal of money to have that convenience of not being pushing a button on your own off-grid and on-grid system, just two simple systems side by side. And the only reason you're doing it is to offset your meter and the convenience. The payback is not going to be as good on a hybrid system, because it doesn't make sense to give that extra power back to the utility. Now, yes, as long as you're using the power, it does, and you're still getting from 6 to 45 cents a kilowatt hour for what it produces. But these larger systems and these hybrid systems are really going to be, for you, peace of mind and convenience, and the extra cost and the payback period is going to be far longer.
That inverter you were talking about, the new one, not the string inverters, but
right.
Those apply to all three systems, right? Not just the hybrid system?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we can use, again, this is new technology. We've been waiting years for it. I don't have any test units out on it, so I can't tell you how reliable those new hybrid systems are going to be. I anticipate they'll be as reliable as the others. But the more buttons you add, the more chance you have of something to break. We like to keep our systems as simple as we can. Let's talk a little bit now about why you're doing it of these three types. Sure. A person needs to ask themselves, first off, what am I wanting to do? And decide whether they want that power for when the power goes out. Everybody wants that. We have a little cabin unit that I build for what I call doomsdayers. There are many people, that's a bulk of a lot of our business, is people worrying about power grids going down and they're building cabins off in the middle of nowhere. And we designed a little cabin unit to give you an idea of price on an off-grid system, the smallest off-grid system that will work and provide power for your refrigerators and lights for any period of time with a small backup generator is $19,000. The reason for that is the battery packs is a big cost. Now, and you can go we can put an off-grid system on your home that'll run your heat and air. That'll run your whole house seamlessly, just like it's hooked to the utility, but it takes two giant batteries. Battery technology has not come along with the rest of you hear about these lithium-ion batteries and Elon Musk's wall, and they're so expensive. Lithium batteries are harder to charge. They're easier to damage. The only thing that still really works, the best thing that works, is old electric forklift batteries. They get them with the longest warranty, 7 years typically, and typically last 10. On our cabin unit, we use an L16 battery, which is a battery about the size of a Stetson hat box for John Wayne. I don't know how any other way to explain. It's a pretty good size battery. It takes 8 of them. And that's about $4,000 worth of batteries. These forklift batteries are $12,000 a piece. And for a typical home here in Norman, it would take 2 of them. So what we have designed to help people out, people need to think about what they're wanting to do. Most people want that, their lights, their TV, their water well, their refrigerator to keep working. You put in a small system, off grid, but prior to doing that, you switch to LED lighting. You switch to high efficiency air conditioners and heaters. On my house, I put in a high efficiency air conditioner that's run by twin laptops. That's got dual compressors that the computer controls how fast the compressor comes on. I drop my utility bill first, $50 a month, just by adding in that air conditioner. There's geothermal air conditioning, works beautifully. They've finally got the bugs worked out of that for the most part. Again, that's drilling water wells and it's an expense, but 50% of your energy usage is heat and air. And so that's your big draw. Another big draw is your hot water tank. Another big draw is your electric ovens and stoves, your clothes dryer. Many of our customers put a propane unit on the back of their house, a generator. They switch their heat. In some cases, their air conditioning to natural gas or propane. And that allows that smaller off-grid system to provide the electricity for the fans that blow the blowers for your heaters. Propane, there is even propane operated air conditioners, mostly used in Mexico now at resorts because they don't have large utility. They produce very good air conditioning. That kind of gets that, they start cutting back and making their house more efficient first is our first suggestion. We suggest they put in a small off-grid system for that power they need when the utilities are out. And then we recommend that they put in on-grid systems to start net metering with the in-phase new micro technology. The real good thing about that is the in-phase technology, as long as we pre-wire for it to be increased in size, you can add 1 more or 100 more solar panels and just slowly add as many as you need so that you don't ever make more power and give it to the utilities for 3 cents a kilowatt hour. There is a myth that solar panels belong on your roof. It works on the roof, and if you're in town, many people, that's the only place they have to put it. For every degree over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, a solar panel loses 1% of its production. Think about what you're doing when you put a solar panel on an asphalt or clay tile roof. It creates a little oven. Here in Oklahoma, think about how often you have to replace your shingles because of hailstorms. The hail's not going to break the solar panel, but it's going to affect your roof. Well, before you can replace your roof, you got to take the solar panels back off. You know, in Oklahoma, what, every 10, 15 years, haven't most of you had to have your roof replaced in the last 10 or 15 years? That's good. That's Oklahoma. Also a problem in Oklahoma is our wind. The weight of the solar panels on any roof is not a problem. They're way under 2 pounds per square foot, which is well within engineering design of any Oklahoma roof. It will take the load burden. What our roofs are not designed for is the uplift. These are like airplane wings on top of your home. And as the wind blows over them, they create lift just like an airplane wing, and they do this. Creates leaks. The best installer in Oklahoma is still, over a period of time, going to have one hole or two somewhere that's going to leak because of wind. Solar panels work best on ground mounted systems. You've seen a lot of those, just where you see the fields of them out of, we use Schedule 40 pipe because if you got a roof underneath a solar panel, you're creating an oven. You don't want anything underneath that solar panel. You just want air to flow underneath it to keep its production levels up. We do a lot of ground mount. We do a lot of pole mounting. And a big fad now, and you can be done cheaply or pretty and quite lovely, are car ports, car patios, or patios in your backyard by your pools. Now they're good for sun, but they will still leak. I mean, you're not putting a roof underneath these solar panels. You want the bottoms exposed. That's the whole purpose of these solar panels not being really on your roof. You're wanting the cooling effect. In the winter time, on a bright sunny day, a solar panel will make more power than on a hot day in August. We must wire these systems for solstice to make them safe, because there are going to be 3 or 4 days in the middle of the winter it's really bright and sunny, that they're going to make more power than they're actually rated at or designed for. So it's really important that when you are designing one of these systems, I got a great deal on these solar panels last week, and I got a great deal on this inverter, and I bought this wire. It was a wonderful deal. I'm going to put these things together and this is going to work. It will not. Each component has to be reverse engineered from what your design, your specific load is. Your neighbor and your next neighbor's neighbor and your next neighbor's neighbor, all of their houses are all next to each other, all use a different amount of power in a different way. What we recommend in solving some of these issues is splitting your service panel box at your home. It'll save you money in a solar installation. Basically, we bring in an electrician and we put a second power box. It's a lot cheaper than buying solar panels and a lot cheaper than buying batteries. And we move your lights, your TVs, your refrigerators, the stuff that you can't do without, and put them in that service panel next to your regular OG&E service panel. We hook the off-grid system up to that. That way, when the power goes out, you're not at home. You got your air conditioners on. The kids are playing video games aren't a problem because the small systems will run those. You got some power load on. You get home and your batteries are run down. If you have broken down your necessary stuff and designed it on this off-grid system, a small one, not an expensive large one, then your house will always have those lights. It'll have that weather report you need. Your refrigerator food won't go bad. Your microwave oven will work. Your ceiling fans will work. And then you run your home off of your regular solar panels, the heat and air, etc. And you net meter that. Now you're putting in the least expensive solar panel system on the bulk of your home and the bulk of your load. Now you've also switched to LED lighting. You've gone to high efficiency, high SEER rated heat and air conditioners. It's a combination. Good windows in your home. If you're a wealthy person, you can do it in a few months and you're done. Most of our customers, or if you're like me, are going to be doing a little at a time. They might put in the off-grid system first just to get a feel for it. That and the service panel switch. Get that, change your loads up. They might first make their house more efficient. 2 years ago, it was as cheap as you were going to be able to do solar because of COVID. COVID has affected supply. Warranty and supply, these go hand in hand. Everybody wants a warranty. Well, most inverters come with a 5, some come with 10. These new in-phase inverters come with 20 to 25-year warranties. I've got them out in the field right now for 14 years without one single in-phase failure. So when you buy, almost all solar panels come from China. There are manufacturers in Texas. There's a few scattered here and there. And almost all solar panels have the same warranty. It's usually 25 years on production. I have yet to have a solar panel fail. That warranty is, I mean, they're rated at 25 years warranty. Think about, we have satellites in outer space right now that have solar panels on them, and the outer space is the most uninhabitable, horrible environment in the world. And we have satellites still operating on 40-year-old solar panels in outer space. The solar panel is not your weak link. Your weak link is your inverters and your charge controllers. Your most critical weak link is the charge controller, which controls the charge of your batteries. It takes all the heat. I only put German charge controllers on our systems from a company called Outback. I have had the best luck, and there's still failures that we've seen. Typically, it's rodent or lightning. We have lightning protection we can put on these things, and if it's not a direct hit, typically works. For instance, the lead building at Lake Murray State Park, when we did it, everything was green. It was hit by lightning 90 days after it went online. Everything in the building went out but our in-phase solar panels. They're tough. But back to the warranty. I can't tell you right now what brand of panels I could even get for you. Shipping has gone through the roof because of China and the Wuhan. But when we do purchase panels, I've been in business probably as long as anybody at 14 years. And out of the 200 suppliers I've used over those years, there may be 3 still in business. They either get, if they're really good at what they do, they get bought and closed. The best solar panels I've ever marketed were Evergreen out of Tennessee. I was able to buy from them for 2 years. That company was bought and they just closed the doors. The product was too good. We've had a mighty fight with Oklahoma Gas and Electric, and the oil companies have been very oppressive. I was actually escorted out of Oklahoma Gas and Electric Company. They asked me to do their buildings. They asked me to do them wrong. My wife, a tree hugger, would have killed me. I refused. So when we try to part source your stuff, when you're buying solar panels or you're putting a system on, it's important that we buy from like Canadian Solar. Probably never heard of them, but they've been around as long as I have. Or Hyundai. They're a car manufacturer, but they produce solar panels. Guess what? They're likely to be around if you have a trouble, and your warranty will still be in place. The inverters, charge controllers, typically 5 years is all you're going to get on a warranty. Inverters, you'll probably replace an inverter every 10 to 15 years. They're not the big cost of the system. You know, depending on how large it is, could be anywhere from $3,500 to $5,500. You might buy one every 15 years. Your charge controllers are going to run around $700, and you might buy 2 of those during a 15-year. And you might not have to buy one at all. I have customers that still operating on their initial units. Again, I haven't lost an in-phase inverter at all. Others have. The real key is wiring size. These systems must be designed, and the components must be designed to work together. Where do I go from here? Yeah, does anybody have any questions? I see Nancy has a question.
Imagine that. I always have questions. So I said that, and then I got them. One thing was something that you just said, which was you said the good companies for solar panels were Canadian something.
Canadian Solar.
Canadian Solar. Well, there you go. Okay, that was hard.
Now, there are many different companies that are good. They all sound, most of them sound Chinese, and the panels themselves are all about the same. Again, it's just trying to buy one that's, you know, that's been around a while, and they're fleeting. It's hard for me to part. Now when I bid a project, I say as available. Right now, you know, 2 years ago, I could have got you a good solar panel at 50 cents a watt. Now it's more likely 80 cents a watt, just because of Chinese shipping charges and tariffs.
I do have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I got confused a little bit when you were talking about the where to place solar panels, and that if you're like, I do live in town, and I mean, not on a tiny lot or anything, but we do live in town. And you said something about the best is ground mounting, which isn't feasible in residential areas in general, right?
Oh, it just depends on your lot. Or pole mounting. I don't know whether you can see my shirt.
That was the other thing, was what the pole mounting is.
You see my shirt here? Can you see that?
Yes.
My wife is a tree hugger. She thinks they should be pretty. This is what we did at Oklahoma State University. It looks like a flower.
Oh.
We can take it, we can lay out a set of playing cards in front of you, And we can mount these panels on poles or on ground mount systems in designs even. It adds a little bit to the cost of the mount, but my wife thinks they should be pretty. But a carport is a good place for them.
That was the other question, is you said something about it being on a patio or a carport, but that it wouldn't be a completely covered thing or something, or there'd be gaps in the patio, or?
Well, the panels, they would be next to each other. It would look like a solid roof of solar panels, but it wouldn't be watertight. In other words, if you parked your car underneath it, water could drip between the panels. I mean, water might drip on your car. It makes a tremendous shade. It would keep it away from your car, away from hail. And it can be made attractive as well. You can either just have it on Schedule 40 poles and over your driveway coming in, or we can put, we could do it on a pergola, and we can do it on your home. I'm not saying, majority of people put them on their homes. I'm just saying in the summertime, you're going to get 20% less production. And at some point, you're going to have to pull them off to replace your roof and then put them back on.
So, and the other part was that you said that they need to be 15 degrees west of due south.
That is the ideal positioning for it. That takes advantage of peak power usage period times. In other words, they'll produce the most power when the utility is charging you the most money. Afternoon hours. Now, some people like them facing of a morning and catching that power, and then another array facing southern and another array of facing due west, so that they're getting a wraparound amount of power. As cheap as the solar panels have gotten, when I first got in the business, a solar panel was $5 a watt. Now, even at 80 cents a watt, and when shipping settles down and these tariffs and the Wuhan settles down, we might be able to get them back in the 50 cent a watt range. But think about it, a typical solar panel is 300 watts. At 50 cents a watt, that's $150 a solar panel. At 80 cents a watt, I can't do that math, but it's $250. Back when I first started, the same solar panel was $1,500. The cost has gone down considerably. That's why it's no longer necessary to have subsidies from the government for them to have a fairly quick payoff. A typical home with a $200 electric bill per month, I would recommend they start out with 30 to 35 solar panels. And if you're getting them, let's say we get a deal on them when the shipping comes in, we'll just use $200 as a start. Well, that's about $7,000 worth of solar panels, plus tax, shipping, blah, blah, blah. Another thing that's gone up, instead of going down, solar panels went down. The inverters really haven't gone down very much. They've stayed pretty status quo. Labor has gone up. Labor is virtually impossible. One of the reasons I retired at 57 is I could no longer staff an international company. The last young man I hired had graduated from OU prior to me stopping my first in disaster company. I sent him to my warehouse and said, go down and mow the lawn. He went to the warehouse, called me up and asked me how to start a lawnmower. I'm not kidding you. Staffing was one of the reasons I retired as early as I did from my international.
We have another question.
Let me see if Dale, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was curious, and I have land in Woods County. A lot of the ranchers up there are switching from windmills to solar water pumps. You have any experience with that?
Yes, sir. That's very popular, and that's really pretty inexpensive as well. I can't recall the name of the pump that we all use. At 63, what is it? Grumfold is typically the pump that, and it only takes a couple of solar panels if you've got a shallow well to feed your cattle pen. We've even bid pivot projects for the pivot irrigation systems. It turned out to be so expensive we didn't do the project. It was in the panhandle of Oklahoma. But you know, they have $15,000-$20,000 water bill, electricity bills running those pivots, watering their fields. And it's doable with solar. It's just quite costly on the front end. Oh, of course, on the back end, a person has to look at, if they're doing solar, of locking in their current rate of electric cost for their future. You're buying your electricity ahead of time at, let's say, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. And once 7 to 12 years pass by, your electricity then is free. It pays for itself in that length of time, depending on the system you pick, how pretty you install it, how many features you want on it. You can buy a Volkswagen or you can buy a Cadillac. We recommend an old Chevrolet. You know, a little bit of both. Most people want their refrigerator to keep going. Our cabin unit does a very nice job of that. The only real maintenance to it is making sure the water stays in your old lead acid batteries. Now, I will make a note that supposedly there is a new battery coming out. Now, I've been hearing this new battery. Coors was supposed to be doing one. It was a sodium ceramic battery. Never was able to purchase or buy one. Elon's supposed to have come up with a new battery that he's bought desert for or something to mine the materials he needs for it. I suspect it's going to be something along the agenda of the same thing the lithium ion batteries were. They work beautifully. They produce a lot of power, but nobody can afford them. You know, I say no one. I'm from Chickasha, Oklahoma. I lived in Norman since 1976. I can't afford them.
I had a question. Sir, I have a question about the choice you present. That is, we either do on-grid or off-grid. But is there a hybrid version of that, a so-called distributed energy source network, where I and a couple of my neighbors are linked together, maybe with the school nearby, and then we also link up with OG&E or OEC?
Yes, there is. There is. It's called the Sunny Boy. It is, I have spoke with, I traveled all the way to a Las Vegas convention to speak with the folks about Sunny Boy. It is an Outback product. Turns out I knew more about their product than they did, but it was originally designed to link communities, small communities and homes together. Absolutely, they do have that. It is where it's a central battery source. Everybody's linked together. Everybody's units are, the technology is out there. And that is what our company is about. Once someone decides what they want to do, we give them the means and the design that will produce what they're seeking.
Thank you.
The advantage and disadvantage in a situation like that would be, let's say, the Joneses are at work from 8 to 5, the Smiths are at work from 3 to 9, and the groups that are mixed together, or a business is running at night, flipping their hours, and they're sharing the storage of power. The storage of the power with solar is the key here. And the time of usage. So when you group a group of people together like that, you would want to coordinate. You might want to, it might be the 1st, the 6th, and the 9th house in your community might hours coordinate to where the power usage is compatible. You might find that it's a mix, you know. Again, we always recommend, especially for those of you that want that, I know for instance, when we have an ice storm, we've all experienced 5 days or a week here in Norman without power. That's typically what somebody's wanting to take care of. And they're wanting to cut their electric bill down. I'll give you an easy calculation figure any of you can do at home to find out how big a system you need. Take your 12-month electric bill and add up how many kilowatt hours you use each month. Okay? Some months you use a lot, some months you use a little. When you're dealing with green energy, you work on averages. You're trying to average it out. You take the total number of kilowatt hours that you use per year and you divide that by 1.66. That will tell you how many watts of solar panels you need to install to offset that load. Okay, now some months you won't get much of a bill at all, but when the darker months, you know, in the fall, you know, it's an average. You'll see that's the sweet spot. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars I spent to figure out that one number, 1.66. We tested it with Oklahoma State University, and they were very helpful early on in us getting into this business when they allowed us to participate in their new lead building project. What would be the range? A typical person here in Norman, and I live in an 1,800 square foot home. I don't know how large your home's is, but a typical, let's say 2,000 square foot home, I would start out with a 12 kW system. Now you can call up and you can get one of these corporate companies out of California or whoever, and you can probably get it put in for $2.50, $2.75 a watt on your roof. I recommend no matter whom you use, if they bid under $3.50 a watt to do your project, you're not getting what you pay for. You can't buy the copper wire. I'll give you, for instance. Okay, well, let's make it an easy number. Let's just say it's $3, and so that's $36,000. Now it would be plus, so you're going to spend 36 to 42 at $3.50 a watt for a net metering unit. That would offset $150 electric bill, probably $180. They're going to hit you for $35 no matter whether you offset it or not. OG&E is. If you add in that off-grid system for $19,000, that would be in conjunction with that. The service panel split is not very expensive, you know, $750 to $1,000. And you can get by with a $3,500 generator. You want a nice quiet one, I recommend Honda. They're bulletproof. I don't recommend auto start systems. I don't recommend any kind of monitoring system. Monitoring systems do nothing but tell you how much power any one moment your system is putting out. You don't need to buy that because you're connected to a smart meter at OG&E. It tells you. That's just an extra expense. They're going to tell you how much extra power you've produced over what you've used. And you're going to produce on a properly installed system, on average, 1.66 kilowatt hours per every watt you install. That's just the number it will shake out to. With a standard panel, you'll get 1.8 or 1.9 with a high efficiency panel, but you paid twice as much for it. Why wouldn't you just buy 2 regular panels and get twice as much power instead of 15% more power? The federal rebate, it changes. It's what you qualify for, basically. And it has changed from year to year. The catch with the federal rebate is it's only good if you owe them money. Now it rolls over. My system that I've got on my home, I'm still rolling it over. And I've had my system for 14 years. I haven't collected very much from the federal government. Don't count a lot. It is, but you must have that liability. It really works for W-2 people. You'll get it back. You will get it back if you have a federal liability. That's the catch. Most people, most businesses depreciate or take deductions. Like we bid many hotels, and none of them have qualified for the federal incentive because they've taken their incentives elsewhere. Most businesses do. It's W-2ers or people that have stock incomes, you know, some sort of.
As long as you're
right. You'll get 20.
We can't hear your question.
Okay. I'm sorry. Just trying to clarify here that 26%, that rebate, I mean, that's substantial, but you would get that as long as your total tax liability, not just how much you owe after your estimated taxes you paid, or that, right?
It is not a tax. It's a tax credit on your liability, on tax owed. So you just don't get it unless you owe them money. You're basically, instead of paying your federal income tax, you're putting that payment on your system. And that's been misleading to a lot of customers.
Now, just one other piece of information when I was trying to educate myself about that federal credit is that 26% is good currently. is good this year and next year, then starts to go down pretty quickly unless the new administration renews it or something like that. But currently, it's good only at that level for this year and next year.
And it has been renewed over the past 14 years at different levels. It has never dissipated, but I know very few people that have used it. Now here in Norman, most of my clients are doomsdayers. Most of my work is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we do a great deal. Norman doesn't have very many installations. I had probably one of the first solar installations in town. I know that I work directly with OG&E and to get the smart meter to actually work with solar panels on my home. And I live just 2 miles east of the stadium out between Alameda and Robinson on East 36th Street.
Hey, Steve, I had a question for you about the pole mounts. You mentioned that it's more efficient if it's a pole mount as opposed to being on the roof. So
yes,
you're recommending that the best location for the panel would be in some sort of pole mount. Would it be a problem if it was near? Is a certain distance from the roof line if you wanted to have the pole close to your house?
Be fine. It would be fine. That what we do is we Google your particular location and we submit it to shadowing on a 365-year pattern, because the sun goes up and higher and lower in the horizon in the sky, depending on what time of year it is. So we take your particular property and determine the places that it would work on your property. The advantage of a pole mount is you can be right on your property line, right next to your house, right next to your swimming pool. For instance, at my house, I have one in my front yard that actually has a plug-in at the bottom of the pole so that my electric weed eater goes there. You know, you're running wire out there. You're getting, depending on where you're putting these things, you're actually going to have the ability to have a plug-in to use right there, unless you're using a string inverter. Because the string inverter, it's DC power. With the in-phase inverters, they come directly off the pole or the panel at 110 or 220, depending on whether you use one phase or two phase of the legs coming off of it.
One other quick question. You mentioned on the flat roofs. So if you have an organization that has a flat roof that has some space for the pole mounts, is that where you'd recommend those be, as opposed to being on a flat roof where they increase the likelihood of hail damage? Or
I would recommend the poles going around the building. Now, I'm not saying that you couldn't put some on the flat roof. Here's the real issue. Because the sun goes up and down during different parts of the year in the horizon, the optimal angle of attack to the sun in between its low point and high point during the year is 36 degrees. It goes coincidentally with the longitude of your location. I always mix those two up. Sometimes I say latitude, but that's 36 degrees here in Oklahoma, the longitude. So when you put a solar panel, you can't really put a solar panel on a flat roof at 36 degrees. And you ask why? Well, you can, but we have to drill through that roof, attach mounting bolts to your I-beams, because you're putting a giant sail up on top of that roof for wind to catch. Roof mounts are typically no more than 15 or 20 degrees. And then we put a windage screen to keep the wind from going underneath them, because most mounting systems on a flat roof are ballast mount. Almost all buildings are engineered for at least an additional 2 pounds per square foot of weight. So we basically put a shoe pad up on top of that flat roof and literally put concrete blocks on it to hold the panels down, and then attach them together with wire so they don't blow, you know. It's called a ballast mount system on flat roofs.
Right.
And if you get any kind of correct angle of an attack, the ballast mounting will not work in Oklahoma.
Right. Okay. Let me go to Joe. Do you have a question?
Well, not much of a question, is just some comments, because I feel like a pioneer in the solar system in Norman, because we've had solar panels on our house for 37 years now. That's 37 years.
Congratulations.
But it's not for electricity. It's only hot water. We've got a hot water system that we've had on our roof.
Yes.
It's worked fine for these many years. We've had to take them off one time because we had to repair the roof. Like you says, it's a problem up there. It is a flat roof and it works well. You know, we hadn't had any problems with it on the flat roof. Of course, they're not parallel or flat on the roof. They are at an angle, and I would say 30, 35 degrees, like you said, they should be. And I think they've got them oriented in the right direction, so we hadn't had any real problems with it. But I think my only real question I would have, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about that system, but one of the questions I had was, with these panels that I've got, which are designed just for hot water, and water's circulating fluid through that for heat exchanging, but is it possible to use the same panels or similar to generate electricity in some way also? I'm sure there are different designs on them, but what do you recommend?
Your panels are coils with water running through them.
Yeah, it's a gray oil, I think is what it is.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons you're not having the issue with ballast issues, because, for instance, water is 7.65 pounds per gallon, or oil is somewhere near that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're not only a solar panel weighs 22 pounds, your solar panels likely weigh 100 pounds. And so they're their own ballast to speak of.
Yeah.
You've got a great deal more weight. Many roofs would have issues holding that much. You know, roofs are weighted at a downforce of so many pounds per square foot. Obviously, your roof will support that much weight. If you had it for 37 years, it certainly will.
Right.
The difference is a solar panel is aluminum, piece of thin aluminum, and it's got a piece of glass over it. And a solar panel is grown. The cells, I'm not smart enough to tell you the makeup of these cells, but they're a silicon cell that they grow, and they imprint like a circuit board in there to collect electrons from the sun. It hits that silicon. That silicon kicks an electron off onto a copper electrode, and it knocks an electron on the negative side lead of your solar panel.
Mm-hmm.
When they build a solar panel, they don't decide they're going to build a 325 watt solar panel. What they do is they grow these wafers, put their electronics on them, build it, and because they've grown it, it's kind of like a flower. You got a pretty rose and an ugly rose. The ugly rose silicon panels turn into the 200 watt panels, and the 300 watt panels are the pretty roses. They actually grow the key component of a solar panel. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you know, and they don't know what they're going to get until they assemble it. It's like, that's why they all look alike, and they're rated at a different power rating. They don't degrade very much. that was a big worry 14 years ago about how long will they last. Well, I've got solar panels out in the field now, 14 years old, that have degraded no more than 5%. Now, you may have heard of something called thin film. Mm-hmm. They're making shingles out of it. They spray it on. Again, it's a silicone matter of some type, and it does the same thing. The sun hits it, it knocks an electron off. The problem with the thin film, they only cost about 60% as much as a regular solar panel, but the problem is they degrade. There's nothing to them. And you know how a mirror that's been near water and it kind of, the bottom of it gets jagged and the chrome's gone and it's no longer mirror at the bottom? That's the same thing that will happen to a thin film panel. And it doesn't even produce near the power. You use it like on a sail of a sailboat. You'd use it, you know, there's options for it. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Steve. If there's any other questions, how can we reach you at your company's name, the Greenwind?
Greenwindandsolar.com. I don't keep the website up very good, but it's got my phone numbers on it.
Okay.
The 1-800 number, cell phones kind of knocked it out. It's probably still on there, but my cell phone number for everyone out there is 405-850-8065. I get about 1,000 calls a day. I promise you, I will call you back if I don't answer the minute you call. I'm just yakking at somebody else. That's my job. I talk.
Yeah. I noticed that on your website, you do have some links to some other research that if someone wanted to learn a little bit more about what's offered in the business. Is that kept up to date from time to time?
I'd like to tell you it is, but it is not.
It's not, okay.
It is, the main company phone number is 405-573-0686. It'll likely ring through to my cell phone if nobody's in the office, and there's rarely somebody in our office.
Yeah, okay.
And it's Green, Wind, and Solar, the word and, not the ampersand.com. It'll give you just some pictures of some stuff. I honestly don't even know what's on there. I'm 63 years old. My idea of email is a carrier pigeon. So I have an IT guy, Earl Chain. He takes care of a lot of stuff for me. He makes my phone work. I can make your solar panels work, but I'm not very good on a computer.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking the time today, and you know, like this is Earth Day Sunday at St. Stephen's, and so we're celebrating that. But we're also interested throughout the year on what we can do to make a difference. And I think what you've given us here is a lot of food for thought. I know we'll have some questions down the road, and we can reach you for that. And but we wanted something practical that we could begin to make think about how we can make some decisions about solar panel. And I think you really helped us with that. Let me ask Jeannie if you have any closing thoughts before we close.
I do. I have a prayer that was written by Walter Rauschenbusch, who lived more than 100 years ago, but it's very timely. And I would like to share that with you today. Oh God, we thank you for this earth, our home, for the wide sky and the blessed sun, for the salt sea and the running water, for the everlasting hills and the never resting winds, for trees and the common grass underfoot. We thank you for our senses by which we hear the songs of birds and see the splendor of the summer fields and taste of the autumn fruits, and rejoice in the feel of snow and smell the breath of the spring. Grant us a heart wide open to all this beauty, and save our souls from being so blind that we pass unseeing when even the common thorn bush is aflame with your glory, O God, our Creator, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Great. Thank you, Jeannie. Okay. So on behalf of the Adult Education Committee at St. Stephen's and all those that helped put this together, thank you. And the rest of us, have a great afternoon. And again, Steve Startz, thank you very much for your time and effort and for educating us on something.
Thank you for having me. Please don't hesitate to call if you have any questions.